Hey everyone, welcome back. Continuing with the data types, we are now going to talk more about numbers. Before we get started, I just wanted to say something quickly. I'm just using the console to write the examples, just so it's faster, just so I don't have to go back and forth to Visual Studio Code and then back here. But I encourage you to write all the examples inside the JS file so you have everything there. Of course, anytime you want, you can come back here to the written material and check all the examples again. This is why I made this material. So having said that, let's move on. We know that we can assign numbers to variables. All we need to do is use only numbers and don't use quotation marks. So if we include quotation marks, JavaScript is going to treat this as a string. So like this, JavaScript knows we are working with a number. So we have integers and we also have numbers with decimal places like this. We should always use dot, so never use comma, and we also cannot use thousand separators. So if I have a price variable, so var price, let's say the price is more than 1,000, I can't do it like this. This is going to confuse JavaScript and this is going to return an error. We never use thousand separators, so this is 1,000, this is 10,000. This is how we write numbers, and if you have decimal places, you should use dot. So this is the right way of writing a number. We also have big numbers in JavaScript, so we can represent them with this exponential notation, so we don't have a very long number. This number here means 2 times 10 by the power of 45. So now let's check some calculations that we can do with numbers. So of course we have the basic math operations. When dealing with programs, we're going to do calculations all the time. So we need at least the basic math calculations. So I can have a variable called num1. Actually, I just added an empty space here. So now it's right. So num1. I'm also going to create another variable, num2. And now we can make any kind of calculations we want. So sum is just going to be num1 plus num2. As you can see, we have the calculation done here. We can also do subtraction with a dash, division with a /, and multiplication with an asterisk. Just one thing that you might be asking yourself, why was I using console.log in the code and now I'm not doing this anymore? I'm just typing in the operations directly. If you're in the console here, you can just type it directly like this, but this is not going to work in the JavaScript file. In the JavaScript file, if you want to send anything to the console, you need to write console.log. So moving on, we can also use parentheses to form expressions. So if we want the average of these two numbers, if we just write it like this, so num1 plus num2 divided by 2, this is not going to be correct, because following the hierarchy of math operations, it is going to do the division first, and then it's going to do the sum. So in order to sum the numbers first, we just enclose them inside parentheses like this, and then we do the division. So now we have the correct average. Let me clear this real quick. And now let's talk about the math object. If we want to go further with calculations, maybe we want more than just the basic math operations, we have a built-in object in JavaScript. It is called math with a capital M. So we can use it to make some more complex stuff like 2 to the power of 4. So how can we do this? We can just type math, and then any method of the math object can be accessed with a dot. When you do this, you have all the lists. So the console brings all the list of methods that we can use with the math object. So if we type pow, so now 2 to the power of 4 is just 2, 4. So now we have the result, which is 16. We can also round numbers. So we can use the round method. And this is going to just round to the nearest integer. So I can do math dot round. And then if I'm trying to round 2.7, it is going to round to 3. If I'm trying to round 2.3, it is going to round to 2. We can also round to the current integer. So math dot floor. It doesn't matter if I have 9 here, it is always going to round to the low integer. And the opposite would be the seal method. So this time it is going to round to the bigger integer. So even if I have 2.2, it's still going to round to 3. Sometimes it's useful to do this. Now we also have the square root, and another very interesting thing we have with the math object, we programmers use this a lot, is the random method. So if you do it like this, we always need parentheses for methods. We're going to talk more about this. Even if we don't pass anything inside, we should always use parentheses to run methods. So now we are calling the random method, and what it does is generating a completely random number between 0 and 1. So if I do this one time, it comes one number. If I do this another time, now it's a different number. Every time we do it, it's going to be a completely different number. So now how can we have a random number between 0 and 100, for example? Well, it's easy. We can just do math.random. Then we multiply it by 100. So the smallest one, which is 0, is going to be 0. And the biggest one, which would be 0.999, is going to be close to 100. So this way we have a random number from 0 to 100. And now if we want to round it, we can just use the math.round. And now every time we run this, we're going to have a random number from 0 to 100. Pretty cool, right? Now, besides the math object, we also have some methods that can be used with the number data type. So one example is the toFixed method. So if I have a number, let me just clear this real quick. I'm going to create a variable called my number equals 3 point something, just like this. And now if I use the round function from the math object, it is just going to round it to 4. I could use the floor or the seal methods, but still it's not exactly what I want, because maybe I just want to round this number to 2 decimal places. So in order to do this, we can call the variable my number. So now it's just a different way of writing it. So we just use the name of the variable and then a dot, and then we can write toFixed, which is the name of this method. And inside here, we just inform the number of decimal places we want. If we don't write anything here, it's just going to round to no decimal places. If we write 2, then it's going to round to 2 decimal places, 3, 4. We can choose anything we want here. So at this point, you might be getting a bit confused, because with the math object, we just wrote it like this. So math.round, and then we place the number inside. So in this example, we would just write it like this. So math.round, and then inside it, we're going to put our variable, so my number. So we would write it like this. And this is a different way of writing it. So my suggestion to you is that you don't worry about this at the moment, because all of these things are going to be learned naturally. You don't have to understand everything, why this one you write it like this, why this one you write it like that. The intention here is just to get started, getting comfortable with JavaScript, writing code, and then you'll see that you won't have any trouble understanding these things. Alright, so moving on. Now we are going to talk about incremental operators, but this video is getting a bit too long, so I'm going to stop it here and we're going to continue in the next video.